Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Asian Dating Podcast. Today, I have Mihal Neistetter with me. She is a trained sex educator, professional matchmaker, super connector, and sex positive mama to her two kids. She holds a bachelor's degree from Penn State University and a Master of Education in Human Sexuality from Widener University. After 5 years of helping clients find loving relationships, she has a PhD on dating. Born in Jerusalem, Mahal is very active in Philadelphia's Jewish community and runs her own boutique matchmaking service. And she focuses on people who identify as Jewish, which she will explain more. She also works as a nonprofit as an in-house matchmaker. So Mahal, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time. I can't wait to talk about Jewish dating and all that good stuff. I mean, I know Asian women love Jewish men, so I hope you can shed some light on as to why and all that. So welcome. How are you today?
Doing so well, but you tell me why they like dating Jewish.
There's so many reasons why they like dating Jewish men, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. So yeah, what's on the agenda today? What should we talk about, you think?
Well, you came up with the agenda, and it's 5 things that you should know about dating someone who's Jewish.
Okay. So yeah, let's jump right in then. So what are some things that we could talk about why people like dating Jewish men or Jewish women? And we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, I'm going to start by saying that this was a very difficult list to create, but I consulted my Jewish mother, so I was in good hands. But the first point that I want to make is that every single Jew is different. It's like a fingerprint because our Jewish identity is made up of how we were raised and our family and language. And it can also be what level of religiosity you do practice in your life. So there's secular Jews, there's observant Jews, and religious Jews.
What are the difference?
Oh my God, there's a lot of different sects of Judaism, but a secular Jew, how they identify is they see themselves as, connecting more to certain traditions, following holidays. They don't necessarily go to a synagogue or to a religious meeting space.
Okay.
And then people who are more observant or religious, usually belong to a synagogue, maybe live in a community that's only Jews. They could live in Israel, they could live in countries all over the world, but they'll be more observant of Jewish laws.
Mm-hmm.
Of
Okay.
which there are hundreds of laws that you have to practice. So if there are hundreds of laws, some people follow one law and some people follow all 613, I think it is. And so I think there's a lot in Judaism where people assume, that Jews
Okay.
are a certain way. There's a misconception, people think about Jews who grew up and go to delis and eat bagels, but that's one type of Ashkenazi, Jew. I don't know if you know the difference between Ashkenazi and Sephardic. Yeah. So, but there's Jews who are in Ethiopia and there's Jews who, live in Colombia, all over the world. So yeah. How's that for an answer? All Jews are different,
Right.
So
Right.
the question is what bonds us?
Yeah. What bonds you? What makes you guys a great catch?
Well, our anxiety. No, what makes us a good catch? I didn't really prepare this answer, but I do think that something that's valued in Judaism is a love of learning. So my guess is maybe people like dating Jews because they're smart or free thinkers or have studied or have reached a certain level in their career. I mean, a lot of Jews have, written books or, won awards. I don't know. That's my guess.
Just very accomplished, very ambitious, right? I mean,
Attractive. It's
right,
attractive to be with
right,
somebody who is ambitious and smart. I like to be with a partner who's intelligent. So
right. And educated, right? Like that's just some of the things I've learned with my friends who are Jewish is like they value education, value smarts, intelligence, like all that is very important. And they want to pair up with somebody who has those same credentials, if you will, because they don't want to like marry down, if you will. They want to marry up, right? So they want someone who's just as like they are, especially bringing them home to your parents and stuff like that. So kind of like a lot of Asian families are like that. They just are, sometimes they're like education snobs. Like, did you go to a good school? If you went to a Cal State, they don't think that's good enough. A university is better, that kind of stuff. So I could totally see that, where you just want to be with somebody who's at your level, if you will. So, but
And maybe
yeah,
who grew up with like a love of learning, who grew up in an environment with a lot of books,
right.
things
Yeah.
like that.
See, I'm like part Jewish, I think. I love books. I love learning, all that stuff.
These are very positive stereotypes that we are discussing, and it doesn't fit to everybody, but I'll go with it. The love of learning, that's
Yeah.
what keeps the Jews.
I love it. Okay. Okay. All right. What's up? What's on your agenda?
Okay, so the next one is about there's a really strong difference between how somebody grew up as a Jew versus who they are now. So when I do my matchmaking meetings, I ask people about how they were raised. So my question is like, is Judaism a part of your life now? And if so, what does it look like? And usually they go way back into time and tell me about how they were raised versus what they do now. So for example, like maybe they went to synagogue growing up all the time, or they went to a Jewish summer camp for a lot, vastly for American Jews in North America. And they'll tell me like, well, I didn't drive on Saturday, or I kept a kosher home, but now I'm less strict about this. Or sometimes people are more strict about this. And so it's really interesting to hear their journey and how that shapes, their dating practices as well.
So, do you find a lot of them are the way they grew up and the way they value religion is very different than now? Or do some of them reject it, or do some of them say, well, I grew up Jewish, but I don't really need to go to, I don't really need to go to synagogue, or I don't need to go, you know, be so religious now? Like, do you find that as they get older, they want to embrace those traditions, or they don't? I mean, what's your experience?
It's hard for me to say a trend because I don't have a PhD in Jews all over the world. I do know who's been coming to me and who's been attracted to me,
Mhm.
and speaking with me as a matchmaker, because some people do, become more religious and seek out mitzvah matchmakers who don't charge and work within Orthodox communities and things like that. But because I've been a secular matchmaker and I myself, I'm not very practicing, and I married someone who isn't Jewish, a lot of people who have come to me have an interest in dating someone Jewish. They haven't always dated someone Jewish necessarily, but as they get to an age where they want to have kids and things like that, it becomes higher on the priority list. And so I ask them, like, is this a priority? Is this a number one? Is this a deal breaker? So I need to really understand that. And we have to break it down, of course. Does that make sense?
Mhm, mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's what comes to me.
Is it a stereotype or an assumption that Jewish men, what percentage want to date and marry a Jewish woman, would you say, if you had a guess?
Oh my gosh, I have to guess. Wow, I have no idea. I just think everybody's so different when and I even work for a Jewish nonprofit and people have different answers as well.
Okay. So it just varies. It just
It
varies
does,
depending on what they want.
it does varies, but obviously, in matchmaking, so many of us who do work with Jews do hear that desire to
Right.
find somebody who grew up in a similar way to them. Actually, I was going to bring this up in a later point. I just realized. Okay, let's move on to the
Okay.
next one, and then I'll catch my thought, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so the next one is kind of fun. Have you ever heard of Jewish geography?
No.
Okay, so
What is that?
my third point that you should know about dating somebody Jewish is that they love to play Jewish geography. So it's this game, if you will, but it's really just about when two or more people, Jewish people, get together, and it's like a staple of small talk across North America, especially, but it's probably applicable to all. And so you try to figure out like if someone's Jewish and who you're connected to and how. And it usually takes like 3 or 4 questions until you find someone in common, or you look each other. Like eventually I pull up my phone and I'm like, okay, let's look at the LinkedIn or the Facebook and who do we have in common and how do you know them?
Wait, that's a thing where
Yeah,
you meet
all the
someone
time.
Jewish and then you try to find like a link between the two of you if you know
Always,
common friends?
always. Yeah,
Oh,
I'll tell you a story. Okay, I was picking up my daughter from a little dance camp that she was at, and somebody came to pick up their daughter, and they had a dog with them, and when they talked to the dog, they referenced their daughter and said her name, and I could tell it was Hebrew, and I never heard it before. I was like, oh, so are you, like, are you a Jew? Like, what does that mean? That's called bageling, when you try to figure out if somebody's Jewish.
what?
And
I've
so
never heard of that.
it's true.
Bagling? Okay.
So, and he was just like, yeah, it's Hebrew. And I was like, oh, cool, cool. Like, I speak some Hebrew too. And then I think it probably took 3 questions until we landed on someone in common. I was like, oh, so are you new here? And I found out where he was from. And I figured out, and then we got to a Jewish summer camp question. And he was like, I do know somebody from a similar summer camp, but in Toronto. I was like, uh-huh, try me. And he said the name.
And you
And
knew that person.
I know exactly who he is because he was friends with him in Israel. And yeah, I wrote to we like both took a selfie and sent it to a friend in Israel. And he was like, wow, Philadelphia, the center of the universe. So
That is awesome. Okay. So that's like a common thing. I didn't know people did
Jewish
that.
geography
Okay.
all
All
the time.
right. What's
Yeah. Jewish geography.
that? Okay. Okay. I learned something new today. I'm so excited. Okay.
Okay.
What else?
Okay, that was a
Need to
good one.
know.
Okay. And then number 4 is, I'm sure you've heard of Shabbat. And I want to just suggest, if you're Jewish or not, a good deal breaker. No, I want to say a good icebreaker that you could use when you're on a date with someone Jewish is asking them about their connection to Shabbat, how they practiced it in their home. So if you don't know, in Judaism, it's, the end of the week, the day of rest. And some people really take a break from social media. Some people put down their phones. Some people are truly observant and like have to have all of their toilet paper pre-ripped, So everybody has a different way that they observe that level of rest. And it's really a cool thing to talk to somebody when you're dating them about how they like to observe and what they like to do. And for me, Shabbat is about bringing people together. It's the end of the week. We do blessings, as a family, and my family, we do blessings and we do a reflection. So that's my thing. And I like to have single Shabbats too, where I invite people into my home. That's how I grew up. My mom would always have friends over for Shabbat.
So that's every week at the end of the week you would
Yeah,
do
on
that
Friday.
every
Mhm.
Friday. So do you do that now? Do you observe Shabbat now where you still invite singles over to your house and your husband's okay with it? And because you said he is not Jewish, right? So,
He's
so
not Jewish and he's an introvert. And
right.
so sometimes we'll keep it to just my family, but
Okay.
sometimes I do it as a dating event. And it's really just a nice, I'm inviting that guy with the dog actually to
Oh,
Shabbat at my home. Just because it's a nice way to bring people together that are couples or singles. And and I think there's something beautiful about having people over in a
yeah.
safe and welcoming space. And these traditions like lighting a candle, so it starts when the sun sets. So
Okay.
you light a candle, you make a blessing over the wine, and these traditions have unified Jews for thousands of
Right.
years.
Yeah.
Something beautiful about doing that with other people.
So you're saying that's a good date question to ask another Jewish single.
Hmm.
Whether you're on a date or do you just bring it up in conversation if you're just friends or when you
Oh, you could
ask
do
them?
both.
Okay, okay. That's
Totally. Yeah. How do you practice Shabbat? Invite me over sometime. It's like a
okay.
beautiful.
Okay, yeah, that's a good icebreaker and a good way to scoop up some invitations to people that you want to hang out with. So,
I think there's something nice about
yeah,
having an open door policy. So
right.
get yourself invited to a Shabbat. I invite non-Jews to my Shabbat dinner.
Do some Jewish people don't invite non-Jews to Shabbat?
That's a good question. I don't think people make a point to invite non-Jews. I think though, if somebody is like, let's say in your city and they don't have family there, you do try to make a point if somebody is Jewish to invite them.
Okay.
'Cause it's like a good deed.
Yeah, that is a good deed. That's very nice. So are you saying you did that last Friday then?
Yeah. Oh, last Well, I'm like a crazy social butterfly. So we do like things I live in South Philly, and it's like row homes, and we're all on the block, and like a lot of the kids play outside on Fridays.
Uh-huh.
So we did like Pizza Friday, and we lit the Shabbat candles outside and like did it with all of the non-Jewish kids on the block, and we said like the prayers and ate a bunch of pizza.
Oh,
It was really cute.
fun.
And
I love it.
We explained what Shabbat is to them, and it was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that is nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what else? What's the fifth thing that people need to know if they're going to date a Jewish person?
So so I think so I was thinking about this one. And I think like if I think that honesty is something that's valued in Judaism. And if you are dating someone Jewish, you have to have a lot of transparency about like who you are and your level of interest or like practice in Judaism, and asking them theirs as well. You
Mhm.
see that a lot, right? When people are in relationships with someone Jewish, and then they'll say to the person like, "Oh, I would never marry you because you aren't Jewish." Have you heard of that happening?
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering is like, do men who date Jews, do you know that they're 20 something, 30 something, so you know that they won't marry a non-Jew. So there's a thing that goes around Asian community is like, oh, you're dating a Jewish guy. He's just going to date you and sleep with you and be with you, but he's not going to marry you because his first wife needs to be Jewish.
Yeah.
So Asian women kind of like think that or expect that, like, well, he's probably just gonna date me and he probably loves me, but he probably can't marry me. So it's not until later in life that I get a lot of men who come to me as their second marriage, that they come to me and they're like, I'm looking for my next wife and I'm gonna go with an Asian woman this time because I already had my kids and I already had the Jewish kids, raised them Jewish, married a Jewish woman, and now it's like now he's going to marry someone who he wants. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's that. At least with Asian dating, I've heard that from a lot of Asian women who love Jewish men, but think that eventually they're not going to marry them because the guy wants to marry someone Jewish, you know?
And it's
So,
based on experience, right?
right,
And so what I'm saying is my piece of advice is that you need a higher level of transparency, and that you can't really shy away from these direct, honest
right.
conversations, because there's differences of beliefs and backgrounds. And I think that that's important in any healthy relationship. But I was just talking to my matchmaker friend, and like we talked about how the Christmas tree is like the linchpin. The will you want a Christmas tree in your house? Yes or no? Because
Right.
the one thing is if you're like, oh, cool, I'll do Shabbat, I'll come to your Passover Seder. But for a lot of Jews, it's like, I'm fine with whatever, but I will not have a Christmas tree in my home.
Oh, really? So that might be a deal breaker for some.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
okay.
totally, totally. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, what if someone who's Jewish marries someone who's Christian, and then how do they decide what religion to celebrate? I mean, I guess that's where it comes in the transparency and
And
how religious they
the-
are.
yeah, like there comes like in the transparency, and then there's so many things and levels of support that can be provided to that couple to explore these things. Like where I live locally, there's a rabbi who specializes in interfaith couples, and she does education workshops for them. Then there's like programs that send couples to Israel where one person is Jewish and the other isn't. So there's so many different options and ways that you can explore this,
Right,
right?
right,
Or walk away and date somebody who's of your faith or of your ethnicity, because it is tricky to navigate. These relationships are harder to navigate. This level of transparency is more difficult, but it's required of you, and it'll save you heartbreak.
right. Well, I think if a client who comes to you who's looking for someone who's also Jewish, that's who you're going to set them up with, right? It's not like they come to you, they're like, I want to marry someone Jewish. I'm looking for another Jew. And then you set them up with someone non-Jew. Do you know what I mean? Like, as your job as a matchmaker, wouldn't you not try to cause that anxiety in his or her relationship?
Totally, but I also want to understand why they want to date someone else who's Jewish. Like I want to know is it you just want to find someone who's like you? because
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that they're like you if they're
Right.
also Jewish, you know? So I just have to understand what they mean when they say that they want to date someone Jewish, because there's such a wide continuum or spectrum of
Right.
being Jewish. So we have to hone in on that, because it's a very different experience if you're an Argentinian Jew and you marry someone who's a Sephardic Jew, you know? You're
Right.
still gonna have to work through a lot of cultural barriers. You know, your foods are not the same, your language is not the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I'll honor as a matchmaker, and I'm sure you do too. You want to honor people based on what they're searching for.
Right.
And if you're able to deliver, why wouldn't you give them what they
Yeah.
want?
If someone came to me and they're like, I'm looking for someone Christian, I don't think I would set them up with someone who's Jewish, right? Like that's not who they're looking for. So why have them risk falling in love and then have them deal with that? But I can see if you meet someone organically on your own, maybe it's a coworker that you two end up falling in love and you can't help it, right? Like that's when you really have to cross the bridge and really have to figure out those issues and have deep discussions about that stuff and be transparent. But I feel like if someone's coming to me as a client and they're looking for someone Christian and they're Christian, that's who I'm going to set them up with because that's what they paid me to do. Do you know what I mean? But if you
I
meet
mean,
them
that's
on your own, then that's a different story. Like a lot of other things can happen if you meet someone on your own. So,
Well, this is the beauty of being of matchmaking, and this is the beauty of being a conscious connector, because when you're conscious, you do these things with thoughts and you're thinking about values. I don't throw people together, you know? And I think being a Jewish matchmaker, it's in the fabric of my identity and my history, you know, and it's about listening to people and understanding them and doing this with a conscious mind. You don't just throw things against the wall.
right, right. Very good. Very good. Well, I guess I just had a couple questions. So where do you find your single Jewish men and women to be part of your database? Like, where are you recruiting from?
Ooh, what a good question. Lately, Facebook has been such a wealth of people because I get friends and friends of friends that way. And I've been going on Jewish Facebook groups, and there's this awesome trend that's been happening, not just in the Jewish world, but very much so in the Jewish world, where you recommend others to date. And you'll say, like, oh, here's my friend, he's a doctor, whatever it may be. And people will post about them, and matches have been made, you know, in that way. There's a really cool group called Corona Crush, and then there's Meet Jew, and then I just started my own last week, so I don't know if you heard about it, and it's
Yes.
called Date Them. It's called Date Them Jewish, and I wanted to create this space where you could recommend people who are interested in dating Jews. So anybody could join the group, but you would post about somebody who's Jewish, and I want to make this like open, welcoming space where you say, here's my friend, they're X, Y, and Z, and then also a little full disclosure, you know, part or piece, because I want people to be able to share things that might make might leave people out of a normal dating space, right?
So if I join the group and I have a single Jewish friend, I would post him or her on the
Yes.
site.
Yes,
And
yes,
then,
with their
okay,
consent, of course, with their
okay,
consent. And then you can either have people write to you and say, I want to meet that person, or you can tag that person in the Facebook post. But people have gotten married through these Facebook groups. So that's my goal, to get to get
oh,
to a
good.
wedding or something where people magically met through my Facebook group. So it's an inclusive space for people who are like LGBTQ, or people who are patrilineal Jews, meaning that their father is Jewish, but their mother isn't. So we'll see what people, you know, post, but everybody's welcome.
What is that term you just used where,
So, so the way that somebody is Jewish, like through law, through Jewish law, is because your mother is Jewish,
right?
right?
Uh-huh.
And that's what makes Judaism, you know, a race or an ethnicity, because it's matrilineal and it's how the Jewish people have survived. So
Okay.
patrilineal Jews, it's when the father is Jewish.
Okay. Okay. But
But
is that important to someone who's dating and they're looking for someone Jewish? And is that an icebreaker question? Like, is your dad Jewish or mom Jewish, or does that matter?
um, that's a loaded question, May. It's something that is important to some people. For some people,
Okay.
it isn't important to them, but some people do get excluded from Jewish dating spaces.
Oh, okay. But your group does allow that.
My group does allow that. Um, And I'm okay with that. And I've matched people who are patrilineal Jews. It's a really good question, you know, because some people don't want to work with people like that. I'm open to that, but people who are more religious, they're not
Right.
open to that. And that's fine. That's
Right.
fine. It's they observe Jewish law in a different way, and I can still collaborate with them because that's people that I'm open to working with, and they're not.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. So what else? So people can join this group, your Facebook group, and they get matched up for free. Is that how it works? The group?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's just
This is
a
all of us. All of us are becoming matchmakers. All of us
okay.
can do this, right?
Okay. Okay. So you have that. And how else would people find you if they want to work with you or have someone to refer to you?
Yeah, so I work for the local nonprofit Tribe 12, but that services Jews in their 20s and 30s in Philadelphia. But in terms of my own service, you just look up Jewish Matchmaker on TikTok, that's me, or Michal Matches,
Okay.
Michal Matches. That's me on Instagram, and you could reach out there.
Okay. Okay. So I guess my one last question about dating Jewish um, is actually what is the perfect date that people want to go on? I know it doesn't matter what religion someone is, but in your ideal world, working with clients the past 5 years and in your own business, what kind of date do you suggest someone go on? Like, what's a perfect date if you can wave your magic wand and you want two brand new clients to do this? What would you like them to do to get to know each other?
Yeah, I feel like you're I don't know if you're gonna like my answer, but I was thinking something like meeting for ice cream.
Okay.
And so like that's what you would be doing, but the reality is I think that a really good date is when you connect and when you find places where you overlap and connect and it's not an interview style,
Right.
right?
Right. Well, ice cream date is very fun, right? Like it brings out the playful side in both parties, I think, because ice cream, you think of it, I don't know, I think of ice cream as kid, or happy. Like when you think of
Hmm.
ice cream, you think of those things. So it's kind of cool to be like, hey, I'd love to take you out. I love ice cream. I know this brand new place down the street or whatever. And it's like, huh, that's a unique idea to take her out to get ice cream. So it could be ice cream and a walk. It could be,
Uh-huh. Or
anything.
sitting
So,
down. Yeah, yeah.
right,
It's
right. And then you could talk about the different flavors or maybe share or, get to know each other that way. So I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Like a ice
okay.
cream date, like a yogurt date was always very popular in Los Angeles,
But it's
or
still California. Oh my God.
right. Yeah, like smoothies or like juice bars or, healthy places. I deal a lot with Asians, obviously. So I love suggesting like a boba date, like go and get boba. Do you know what that is? The
I
tapioca.
know. When I was pregnant with my first child, I just inhaled so many boba teas. I think
I love boba tea. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
so
actually
today's
like a
my date.
test.
Okay, let's do that. I changed my answer. Scratch the ice cream. Boba tea is the way to my heart.
I mean, it's almost like a fun thing to do. And whether I set up someone who's Caucasian and Asian or both Asian, like I love setting up boba tea places because then you could try different boba tea places. And it's not just boba that goes into these drinks, there's like aloe and I don't know, other kind of fruits and stuff like that. So it's very interesting. But
All right, well, let's make a match through my Facebook group and we'll concierge the whole thing and set them up for boba tea. Deal?
sounds good. Sounds
All
good.
right.
Okay. Well, Mihal, thank you so much for your time. I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit about the Jewish community because I love Jews and I love the religion. I love everything about what Jews stand for. I think Jews and Asians have a lot in common. So I think that's why I have a lot of Jewish friends. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you, May. Thanks for having me.
Okay. All right. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.